Chairwoman. I agree with my colleague from Virginia that structural constitutionalism is very important to freedom, and it works very well here in the United States. So I'd like to explore how it works in Egypt. There's been plenty of talk about freedoms that we enjoy under our Bill of Rights: religion, speech, assembly, press, freedoms of women, minorities, due process in criminal cases, rights of property, rights of contract. As Madison said, those are only parchment barriers if you don't have things like what we have in the Articles of our Constitution: separated powers, an independent judiciary and prosecutor, judicial review, fair, regularly scheduled, impartial elections. I'd like the witnesses to comment on the status of those kind of structural protections in Egypt, and also whether our government is prioritizing those as opposed to simply prioritizing elections.
Well, I'll start. I think there are two structural features that I would highlight. The first is within the Constitution itself, the article, the section that lays out the rights of individual citizens is structurally subsumed to the rights and privileges of the state. So that's an architectural problem, and it's the reverse of what we have with our Bill of Rights. In fact, it's the reverse of our whole structure. The other issue I would highlight, and one reason why I think we've seen such troubling indicators over the last 9 months or the last year and a half, is that essentially we've had an executive ruling unconstrained. There hasn't been a functioning parliament in Egypt to check that executive's power. The judiciary is compromised for a variety of reasons, a lot of holdovers from the previous regime, questions about its independence. So without institutional checks on executive power, without effective opposition parties to check the power of the ruling party, where does accountability come from? The only place left is civil society. And I have to say that Egyptian civil society organizations have been doing an incredible job of trying to hold this president accountable. Transparency measures, giving information to the public, documenting abuses, challenging proposed laws, but they can't do it themselves. They need external support, they need our partnership, and they need those institutions to be built.
I would say from the religious freedom perspective, there are, as I indicated earlier, a number of problematic provisions. But one thing that was brought to our attention repeatedly is that one of the provisions in this new constitution seems to give a religious body, Al-Azhar, the authority to interpret the Constitution, and this was of enormous concern, again, to secular and reformist groups. They were adamant that only a court, a Supreme Judicial Court, should have that authority. And we heard just repeated worries on the part of a variety of people, and not just secularists, but certainly the Coptic minority, that Egypt was moving in the direction of becoming a religious Islamist state. And that relates to a whole slew of fundamental architectural issues about how you're going to protect that range of rights that you referred to earlier. So, through the religious freedom lens, really problematic aspects of the Constitution are of grave concern.
Nothing to add. I think that's really quite right. Well, one thing to add, we do have a role here to play. Whether we like it or not, if we are silent about these issues, we weaken the side that really we are on in those debates in Egypt.
So if I can synthesize what I've heard, some of the provisions that we might call the Bill of Rights are troublesome. Some of the architectural designs are more troublesome yet. Do you think that our State Department, our government, is doing enough to emphasize the need for those kind of structural protections of individual liberties?
Well, I don't think so, Congressman. It appears that human rights and democracy activists in Egypt don't think so, and that's an important issue. I fear that we're lapsing back into the way we mostly over 30 years handled the Mubarak regime, which was to go along with the occasional statement, and frankly, the occasional statement from the State Department spokesman or the embassy spokesman won't cut it. It's really got to come from the President or Secretary of State if it's going to have any impact.
I would agree with that. I think that, the default position is always to be quietly critical and publicly passive, and I just don't think that cuts it. I don't.
I'll just say we said that we would stand up for a set of principles in the course of supporting democratic transition, and we need to do that.
Thank you
Thank you
very
each.
much, Mr. Cohen. Thank you.